I was in White Plains, New York over Passover. White Plains is 30 minutes north of New York City. We had seders with our children and grandchildren. And so on Monday evening, we decided to do something that was an out-of-the-box experience for me. My daughter, my son, Jane, and I went with 3 of our grandchildren to Yankee Stadium for the Yankees-Royals game. Friends, I've never been to a Royals game. We gathered as much of the kosher for Passover snacks that we could find. We bought nosebleed tickets for $34 a piece, a lot of tax. If we went any higher, we would have needed oxygen and a parachute, but the seats were really very fine. And I want you to be clear, we were sitting among Yankee fanatics. My grandson Amitai quickly converted to Yankeeism. He already had a Yankee baseball jacket, and we bought him a Yankee baseball cap. The conversion was complete. I became a loyal Royals fan very quickly. It was a lot of fun, and the energy was amazing. And as we sat there enjoying the weather and the spirit, Yankee Stadium is really amazing. It became increasingly clear to me how much baseball and Judaism have in common. My spiritual enlightenment came in the 3rd inning, when everyone stood and started to sing God Bless America, written by Irving Berlin, who was Jewish. He was born Israel Balin in Russia. And who were we singing along to was a recording by Robert Merrill, the great Jewish operatic baritone who was at one time part of the Yiddish vaudeville and who recorded cantorial music. Isn't that interesting that this God Bless America is our NRT tradition for the end of Erev Rosh Hashanah services? Then there was a 7th inning stretch. The long-standing a lot of this is just enlightenment to me. It's obvious to all of you, but bear with me. I'm a novice. Then there was a 7th inning stretch. The long-standing baseball tradition where fans stand and stretch during the break between the top and the bottom of the 7th inning. Shabbat. The 7th inning of the week when we relax, stretch, and take a break. Now, I'm not the first person to notice baseball Jewish connection, but let me make some random observations. Some of them I borrowed from people who know a lot more about baseball than I do. The batters run from right to left. Jews are countercultural. We are the counterclockwise people. We challenge the establishment. And of course, we read right to left, not left to right. Here is something I stole from a colleague. Quote, "The very first words of the Torah are not in the beginning, but rather in the big inning." Passover, I could never be that clever to make that up. Trust me, I'm not that clever. Passover and baseball go together like matzah ball and chicken soup. On this holiday, we give to God. We thank God for his mighty hand and outstretched arm, which brought us out of Egypt. Baseball, too, celebrates the ability of a good arm to lead the team to victory. Baseball is about seeking to come home. Both baseball and the history of the Jewish people start with leaving home, while also the ultimate goal for both is returning home to either the fourth base or the land of Israel. Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote in How Good Do We Have to Be, quote, "Life is like a baseball season where even the best team loses at least a third of its games, and even the worst team has its days of brilliance. And the goal is not to win every game, but to win more than you lose. And if you do that enough, in the end, you may find you have won it all." Isn't that beautiful? And he was a big Red Sox fan. Judaism is a tradition obsessed with details. Every letter in the Torah has infinite meaning. And baseball focuses in on these details. On the scoreboard, there are so many statistics which are beyond my comprehension, but obviously important to people who know what they're doing. Baseball fans scrutinize stats, evaluate plays, and argue over decisions with Talmudic intensity. Baseball is all about the team that you root for. You have to decide which tribe you identify with. That is the Jewish experience, identifying and staying loyal to the Jewish team, even during times of frustration and failure. Now, I'm sure that if I knew more about baseball, I could come up with a better list. But let's look at the bigger picture. I researched this so hard, my friends. I mean, you're impressed, aren't you? I mean, I know nothing about this. But I went searching because I was moved in Yankee Stadium. I had a revelational experience. So let me give you a specific example of how baseball shaped the American Jewish experience that I found on the website, the Society for American Baseball Research. In 1947, Hank Greenberg was playing his final year in the major leagues as at first base for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Greenberg was the most successful Jewish sports figure in the mid-20th century in the national pastime. He hit more home runs in one season than anyone but Babe Ruth. Greenberg played in many All-Star games and in several World Series, serving his country in World War II, one of the first ball players to enlist, and ended up as one of the only two Jewish players, the other is Sandy Koufax, in the Hall of Fame. But more importantly, Hank refused to play on Yom Kippur. He inspired a poem, a banner, had a headline in the Detroit Press, and the love of the Jewish people everywhere. And he was certainly not a religious person, but he did it as an act of Jewish pride and affirmation. But there is a social justice message here as well, which I never was aware of. What Hank Greenberg meant to Jackie Robinson. And the 1947 season was not only Greenberg's last year as a major league player, but as Robinson's first. And while it wasn't easy for Greenberg to endure the anti-Semitism in the majors, it didn't compare to the abuse Jackie Robinson experienced when he became the first African-American to play in organized baseball in the 20th century. After blacks were barred from the sport, not by law, but by the gentleman agreement among the owners. We're not going to hire those people. Robinson and Greenberg met one afternoon when Jackie reached first, and Hank was the first baseman. That encounter at first base, Robinson reported that Greenberg treated him with respect and said words of support to him. And in the press, and in the Jewish press in the New York Times, that was news. That moment became a legend in the Jewish baseball history, preserved every account about Greenberg and Robinson that Jews write. They always talk about that. I never knew the story, but I share it with you. We Jews can work to redeem the world one act at a time on first base in 1947. Friends, I don't know if I'm going to start attending baseball games as a retired rabbi. But I don't think that the connection between baseball and Judaism are totally forced. There is something there. I was not ready to see it until my religious awakening in the third inning at Yankee Stadium on this festival of Passover. Okay? Can you give me a few more minutes? Is that okay? Okay. I got something so great to teach you. It's almost too good to share with you. I mean, because once it goes out there, it's so good. Let me share with you some real baseball Torah. Taught by Mickey Mantle and reported by Rabbi Jack Reamer, a very distinguished conservative rabbi who writes a zillion wonderful good sermons. In an interview on NPR many years ago, the reporter asked Mickey Mantle, in an interesting question, he said, "I've noticed, Mr. Mantle, that when you hit a home run, you don't react the way other players do. You don't yell whoopee. You don't pound your fist into the air. You don't tip your hat to the crowd to acknowledge their applause as you round the bases. You don't do a war dance. Instead, you quietly run the bases, and then you go inside and take your place on the bench in the dugout. How come? And Mickey Mantle answered, I don't do that out of respect for the pitcher. Why should I humiliate him by celebrating that I got a home run off of him? After all, when he strikes me out, he doesn't do a war dance. He doesn't pound his fists into his glove. He doesn't carry on like a banshee. So why should I embarrass him when he never embarrasses me? Rabbi Reamer comments, isn't that an extraordinary statement about Menschlichkeit? Who among us would be conscious of the pain and the shame that a pitcher is feeling if we were to hit a home run in the big leagues? The lesson that Mickey Mantle taught when he answered that interview's question is a lesson that all of us need to learn at some time in our lives, even if we never get to play in the Major League Baseball. The lesson is that every time someone wins, someone also loses. And a mensch is someone who remembers that truth even at the moment of his greatest triumph. That's great baseball Torah. That's a magnificent lesson. An especially great lesson on Passover when we remove 10 drops of wine from the Kiddush cup, paralleling the 10 plagues because we don't celebrate the death of the Egyptians, our opponents. Baseball and Jews, a marriage made in heaven, or in the nosebleed seats. And from now on, I'm ready anytime for someone to take me out to the ball game. Shabbat Shalom.